the culture of Christianity. And in the effort of exposing the truth about history and state, urban churches were wrongly convicted in the court of public opinion and branded with such names as Uncle Tom, sellout, race traitor, white supremacist, and the ultimate offense, Christian conservative. Ignoring such insults and breaking free from the plantational strongholds, they now are free and functioning in the podcast underground here at the Almighty Fear Not Show. All avoiding mainstream media. So if you need clarity on cultural, social, or political issues and how it relates to the biblical worldview, then maybe you can, and then maybe, just maybe, you can employ them. This is Blacklist.
Minister V. Hill here. We have special guest today, Krista Bontrager. Bontrager. Is that German?
It is German.
I am smart. Okay, Bontrager, and now she is one half of this dynamic duo we like to call the Center for Biblical Unity. Am I saying that right?
That's correct.
Okay, and co-author of a book called Walking in Unity. What she doesn't know is that we're going to make her, I have a part of our broadcast that we're putting together. It's called Blacklisted.
Okay.
Okay. And you will be the first white woman on Blacklisted.
Okay. I'll take it.
She's an honor.
I'm honored.
Yeah, she's an honorary Blacklisted.
All right.
And
our version of diversity.
it's our version of diversity. Right. And I'm just making that part clear right now. But what we're going to talk about is her show, Theology Mom. Now, interesting thing, if you go to Apple, there will be, and you type in the Center for
Biblical Unity.
Biblical Unity, you will get 3 different podcasts. In fact, if you go to the website, I think it's 4.
Yeah. 4
different podcasts. We're going to focus in on one.
All right.
Okay. Now, in the past couple of past podcasts that you had, which are very good, very teaching tool, take notes and look up stuff, do research, be a Berean.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. One I want to talk about, since this is a mini interview, and we're going to come in for a real interview where it gets a little bit more detail and a lot more fun, is Christian nationalism. You have one on Christian nationalism.
Yeah.
Now, explain to my audience what Christian nationalism is.
Well, it's a term that has many meanings. And
yes, it does.
This is why it is a very confusing term.
Mm-hmm.
And it can mean anything from white nationalism,
yes,
white supremacy,
mm-hmm.
or it can mean a Christian who likes to vote consistently with their worldview.
Right.
And if you're against things like abortion, you would be considered by some people to be a Christian nationalist,
mm-hmm.
because you are trying to bring Christian ideas and perspectives to bear on public policy and law.
Right.
And so it's not really a term that I recommend people use because it is so confusing, but I have definitely had a journey of my own.
Just investigating
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad you did that because I've done my own investigation. Now, what I could gather, there's a small brand of Christians, conservative Christians, who wouldn't mind using that term.
That's very true.
There is that.
Yeah.
But it's mainly, would you say, a negative slack behind it when you hear, like you said, at times, what I've noticed in the last couple of cycles, voting cycles, when, especially when Biden was president, they would use that term and then link it with like you said, white Christian nationalism.
Yeah.
Now, nationalism in and of itself is not a bad thing.
Typically, nationalism is contrasted with globalism. Mm-hmm. So if you're a nationalist, you're somebody who can be someone who loves your country. You're mm-hmm. very patriotic. You've mm-hmm. served in the military. You salute the flag,
mm-hmm.
you know.
More patriotism involved.
Yeah. Right? Whereas globalism is this idea of being a global citizen, and things like the World Economic Forum that want to bring us all together and kind of homogenize us into a global
mindset
and entity versus our national distinctives and what does it mean to be an American or a German or a British person. So
Yeah, piggyback on that, a lot. That do a lot of like prophetic conferences and stuff like that. That part, a lot of people associate that with the mindset of end times.
yes,
Okay, in other words, in order for people to accept this system that the Bible does promise is going to happen, they would have to be talked into it or engineered for that.
into globalism.
Yes,
yes,
to even accept that. So Marxism would be a part of that connection.
Many people who advocate for globalism also advocate for a version of socialism. That's
exactly
correct. Yeah.
Okay. So when we talk about Christian nationalism and its many different forms, you really have to be careful on how you take it, and the fact that it's so confusing
Yeah.
should be a warning signal. Okay, something's wrong with this idea of Christian nationalism.
Yeah, and I think that there's a version of it that I could maybe get behind in saying that I love my country.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a nationalist, not a globalist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Christian,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that the Bible talks about justice,
Mm-hmm.
and that we ought to advocate
Mm-hmm.
in our country and also in our local governments
Mm-hmm.
for just policies.
Exactly.
We shouldn't have policies where we're killing our unborn children.
Right.
We should preserve marriage.
Right.
We should protect children from predatory behavior. These are things and ideas that we get from the Bible. So if that's what somebody means
Mm-hmm.
by a Christian nationalist, okay, I could see a case for that.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to be very careful about how we use this term in public.
Right.
Because it is so misunderstood.
You got to also understand that there's a set of like progressive Christian that's going to automatically brand it as the white supremacy.
White supremacy.
Yeah, and they use that as a talking point, even though I don't know if they actually mean it, but
yeah.
But there is that David French and those kind of guys.
Could I also though suggest that in the historically Black church, there are those historically Black churches which also advocate in Jesus' name for certain progressive policies.
That is true.
It is not uncommon to see Black pastors advocating for abortion
Mm-hmm.
or more left-leaning policies. I would say that too is a version of Christian nationalism. It's progressive Christian nationalism.
And that's exactly why she's on the blacklist right there. See that part? See it? You guys catch that part right there? But we'll get into it with Monique, the second part. But she's, she has, half of the book. Anyway, okay, we don't want to entice them too much. Get them. Okay, we just want to get.
Tease.
Okay, just a little tease. Okay, now let's talk about this. The anti-Semitic. We witnessed that during the last administration, during the first part of when Israel did their part and answered back. And then we had this upheaval, and people were totally surprised. Even some of it shocked me of the anti-Semitism that's in the colleges.
Yeah.
Now, what did you find out? What was your spin on it? Because you did two.
I've done quite a lot of content related to the war in Israel and trying to help understand anti-Semitism, what it is. I think
it's an American version.
Yeah, and it does show up it seems to be growing in Europe as well. And there is a strong push in the international community in the UN
right, yes.
to not allow Israel to defend itself.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, the campus uprisings in America of protesting for Hamas, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And having an attitude that Israel should not defend itself. And I think that that's what first put it on my radar of, well, what is anti-Semitism exactly? What qualifies as something being anti-Semitic? And so I've been on a journey for the last year or so and tried to study it in some detail.
Okay. Now, we're going to cut it right there. you're gonna have to come back for
Okay.
a serious interview. And like I said, a lot of this is just preview. We have a lot of range. And as far as the Fear Not show, it is segmented. It's put in 4 segments, and this will be the crossover segment, and our allies on the other side
Okay.
of the evangelical circle, and of course the blacklist. So there you go. This is you want to give out any information?
Come check us out at centerforbiblicalunity.com.
Okay, and the book.
Our book, Walking in Unity, is available wherever you buy your books.
And we're going to go into detail about that as soon as we get them both together. Okay, this is Minister V. Hill signing off for the next interview.